Imagine crawling through absolute darkness, 1 meter underground, where the air is so thick you can barely breathe. Above you, B-52 bombs shake the earth. Around you, venomous snakes and deadly traps wait in silence. Ahead of you, an invisible enemy who knows every inch of this maze. Behind you, no backup, no radio, no escape route. Just you, a flashlight, and a pistol. This was the reality for thousands of soldiers in Vietnam, fighting a war that redefined human suffering. Welcome to Twilight Telling, where we uncover the darkest chapters of history. Today, we're descending into the true hell of the Vietnam War. The beginning of suffering. The Vietnam War stands as one of history's most devastating conflicts. But not for the reasons you might think. This wasn't just a battle between communism and democracy. It was a meat grinder that consumed an entire generation of young men who never asked to be there. After World War II ended, Southeast Asia became ground zero for ideological warfare. Vietnam, a nation of rice paddies and dense jungles, had just broken free from French colonial rule. But freedom proved to be an illusion. The 1954 Geneva Accords sliced the country in half. In the north, Ho Chi Minh established the Communist Democratic Republic of Vietnam. In the south, the Republic of Vietnam emerged with American backing. For ordinary Vietnamese people, this political division shattered families and communities. Village boys became soldiers overnight. Northern youth were swept up by revolutionary fervor, told they were liberation fighters. Southern youth were drafted into the Army of the Republic of Vietnam, branded as defenders against communism. But beneath these grand political labels, they were simply young men torn from their farms, their families, their futures. The social fabric disintegrated. Fathers chose the North while sons joined the South. Brothers became battlefield enemies. Anyone deemed disloyal on either side faced accusations of treason. Political pressure crushed communities from every direction. The war intensifies. By the early 1960s, tensions exploded. The Viet Cong, a guerrilla force aligned with the North, launched attacks on Southern military installations. The United States, terrified of communism spreading through Southeast Asia, deployed military advisors. Soldiers on both sides realized they were stepping into something far larger and more terrible than anyone had imagined. The 1964 Gulf of Tonkin incident changed everything. After reports that North Vietnamese forces attacked the USS Maddox, the U.S. Congress granted President Lyndon B. Johnson full authority to deploy combat troops. What began as a local conflict transformed into an international war. South Vietnamese forces welcomed American troops with desperate hope. Huey helicopters, tanks, and sophisticated weaponry flooded bases around Saigon. But reality on the ground told a different story. Morale wavered constantly. Many recruits were forced into service without proper training. Corruption within the government created chaos in logistics. Soldiers often spent more energy searching for food than preparing for combat. The North pursued a completely different strategy. Ho Chi Minh and General Vo Nguyen Giap relied on guerrilla tactics. The Viet Cong moved through the Ho Chi Minh Trail, a secret network stretching from Laos to Cambodia. They moved swiftly under forest cover, masters of adaptation who could survive on minimal supplies while their enemies collapsed from exhaustion in the humid jungle. For soldiers everywhere, this marked the moment war became horrifyingly real. Southern forces discovered that even with powerful allies, they faced an invisible enemy who could strike anywhere, anytime, then vanish. Northern forces realized they now battled not just fellow Vietnamese, but troops from the world's most powerful nation. The Tet Offensive shatters illusions. January 1968 brought devastation. North Vietnamese and Viet Cong forces launched the Tet Offensive, a massive coordinated attack timed with Lunar New Year celebrations. Over 80,000 communist troops struck more than 100 cities and military bases across South Vietnam, including Saigon itself. For soldiers in the field, this was catastrophic. Troops accustomed to defending against small-scale attacks suddenly faced simultaneous invasions. Cities normally filled with New Year fireworks became seas of bullets and explosions. In Saigon, Viet Cong forces even penetrated the American embassy compound, streets transformed into battlefields for days. But this offensive had brutal consequences for both sides. The Northern Army and Viet Cong suffered tremendous casualties. Estimates suggest tens of thousands died or were captured. Many units were completely wiped out. For individual Viet Cong soldiers, the attack meant advancing without any certainty of survival. One veteran later recalled that everyone knew nearly half their comrades would never return. On the southern side, psychological damage cut even deeper. Though they held their ground with significant American assistance, confidence in national security shattered. Civilians witnessed firsthand how fragile their defenses truly were. Frontline soldiers, though still standing, felt waves of despair that never fully receded. For America, the Tet Offensive transformed public opinion. Media coverage showed urban combat, scattered corpses, and street executions of Viet Cong prisoners. The illusion of quick victory or negotiation crumbled completely. The years of exhaustion. From 1969 to 1971, suffering deepened into something worse than combat. These years became known as the most exhausting period for soldiers. Fighting continued, but their greatest enemies weren't bullets. They were disease, starvation, and relentless exhaustion. In Vietnam's jungles, malaria and dysentery ran rampant. Military records show more soldiers fell to illness than combat wounds. A North Vietnamese veteran recalled that almost every unit had members burning with fever, shaking with chills, or collapsing from malaria. Southern troops faced similar conditions. Despite American logistical support, food and medicine distribution failed due to corruption and impossible terrain. Soldiers existed in states of semi-health, forced to march long distances through forests with weakened bodies. Food supplies dwindled to almost nothing. In many Viet Cong units, daily rations consisted of wild yams, cassava, or stale rice shared equally. Southern soldiers wrote in personal journals about days when they ate one meal, then continued patrolling in pouring rain. Beyond physical suffering, psychological burdens emerged more clearly. After years of warfare, most soldiers lost all sense of optimism in the North. Despite constant propaganda emphasizing heroism, many soldiers mentally broke. They lost friends one by one, saw corpses daily, and carried guilt for surviving. In the South, despair grew as it became obvious they couldn't survive without American support. Letters from home brought both strength and sadness. Many received news of destroyed villages, failed harvests, displaced families. Some soldiers stopped reading letters entirely because the pain was unbearable. The American withdrawal and collapse. By 1973, the United States withdrew from Vietnam. The Paris Peace Accords were signed and American combat troops officially left. For South Vietnamese soldiers, this felt like abandonment on the battlefield. For nearly a decade, they'd fought with American air support, logistics, and intelligence. Suddenly, it all disappeared. They still had weapons but lost faith. An officer later wrote that they didn't lose their weapons, they lost their belief. The North greeted American withdrawal as major victory, but soldiers still struggled through bomb-riddled passages, still faced hunger and disease. However, one thing changed: the belief that total victory was only a matter of time. The real crisis occurred within Southern ranks. Units began faltering. Corruption and power struggles at command levels worsened. The economy collapsed. Prices skyrocketed. Soldiers' pay arrived late. Families lived in hardship. Death tolls continued rising. Early 1975 brought the final offensive. North Vietnamese forces launched the Ho Chi Minh Campaign. Hundreds of thousands of troops, tanks, and artillery moved rapidly from north to south. Cities fell one after another. The fragile Southern Army couldn't withstand the assault. On April 30, 1975, tanks broke through the gates of the presidential palace in Saigon. The Vietnam War officially ended. Life underground, the tunnel nightmare. But there was another war happening, beneath the surface literally. The Cu Chi tunnels represent one of warfare's most ingenious and nightmarish achievements. These weren't simple hiding holes. They were complete underground cities, marvels of military engineering designed to neutralize American technological superiority. The entire network was excavated manually using only hose and baskets. The soil, laterite clay, became rock hard when dry, naturally stable enough to withstand B-52 bomb vibrations. The design featured 3 vertical levels. The first level, 3 to 4 meters deep, served as the main combat zone. Guerrillas could launch surprise attacks, then vanish underground. This depth protected against artillery and mortars. The second level, 6 meters down, formed the heart of community life. Main facilities clustered here: living quarters, emergency hospitals, kitchens, command centers. This level remained safe from most conventional bombs. The third level, 8 to 12 meters or deeper, served as the last line of defense. It functioned as primary shelter during intense bombing raids and housed ammunition depots and secret evacuation routes often connected to the Saigon River. The layout deliberately created confusing mazes. Corridors measured only 80 by 120 centimeters, built in zigzag patterns. This design prevented straight shooting down corridors, limited grenade blast ranges, and made passages nearly impassable for larger American soldiers. Within these underground cities existed complete military facilities, decentralized command headquarters, secure logistics routes, weapons and food warehouses, even workshops where fighters manufactured homemade weapons or modified unexploded American ordnance into mines. The most ingenious innovation was the smokeless kitchen, cooking smoke channeled through long, winding underground filters before slowly releasing at distant locations, usually hidden by morning mist. Emergency hospitals operated at deeper levels. Surgeons performed operations by torch or candlelight. In emergencies, blood transfusions occurred directly from person to person, with pressure regulated using modified bicycle pumps. Most incredibly, these networks supported social life. There were makeshift classrooms for children, even theaters and music halls for entertainment performances to maintain fighter morale. The Tunnel Rats, America's most terrifying mission for the American military. These tunnels created an impossible strategic puzzle. Aerial reconnaissance proved useless. Carpet bombing by B-52s damaged surfaces, but rarely destroyed deeper tunnel layers. Viet Cong troops could appear from nowhere, attack, then disappear in seconds. This forced the U.S. military to create an unconventional solution: the Tunnel Rats. These specialist volunteers, usually chosen for their small stature, undertook the most dangerous missions imaginable. They entered dark labyrinths alone, armed only with a pistol, knife, and flashlight. The recruitment process was brutal. When patrols found tunnel entrances, sergeants would scan their squads and point to the smallest soldier. Many Tunnel Rat veterans recall commanders simply asking in front of the platoon, pointing directly at the skinniest personnel. Physical size mattered critically because tunnel entrances were often only shoulder width. Large-bodied soldiers would get stuck, and getting stuck underground alone in darkness meant certain death. They had to abandon all modern protection. Steel helmets, bulletproof vests, and standard M16 rifles stayed on the surface. Equipment was too bulky. The M16 was too long to maneuver tight corners. Gunfire in confined spaces would rupture eardrums. Muzzle flash would cause permanent blindness. Their equipment reduced to bare essentials: a revolver for reliability in dirt, an L-shaped flashlight as their only eyes, and a knife for close quarters combat or probing the ground ahead. Inside those tunnels, they faced absolute horror: sharp bamboo stakes smeared with human feces, grenade tripwires, venomous snakes and scorpions, every inch designed to kill. Veterans describe it as crawling inside a grave they dug for themselves. The psychological toll was devastating. Many surviving Tunnel Rats carry acute claustrophobia throughout their lives. Simple acts like riding elevators or entering closets trigger panic attacks. The aftermath. When the war ended, suffering didn't stop. Northern soldiers returned home as heroes but found harsh reality. Many came back disabled, sick, or disoriented. Health facilities were minimal. Trauma was rarely discussed. Southern soldiers faced harsher fates: Thousands were sent to re-education camps for forced labor with minimal food. Many died of starvation, disease, or exhaustion. Their families bore discrimination for years. The Vietnam War, when viewed from the soldier's perspective, is a story of human suffering beyond imagination. Young men forced to fight, bodies shattered, souls fractured, lives changed forever. They fought in damp forests, walked with sick bodies, and returned home with souls no longer intact. War may end on paper, but in a soldier's heart, it can last a lifetime. This is Twilight Telling, bringing you the darkest truths of history. Remember these stories, because those who don't learn from the past are doomed to repeat it.